Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got 5 more really cool knives that I think you might enjoy checking out. As per usual, there is no specific criteria other than I think these are cool. This particular episode is going to be a weird one because there's something that's kind of difficult to get. There's something that, the question's not necessarily can you get it? It's should you get it, right? And then there's this another weird one, but I've got some fun stuff sprinkled in. In any case, I will link all this stuff right down below so that you guys can check it out if you want to. Thanks so much to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Let's go ahead and start off with the one that's kind of the why, right? So this is something I recently unboxed. This is the Midgard's Messer Sif Ultralight, which is a bit on the thick side. This is a knife that is so thick. Hold on. You can front flip. I'm going to talk about this. It is so thick and the grind is so thick behind the edge that it is it doesn't really cut. The blade is made out of CPM S30V. The scales are titanium, and the blade stock thickness is nearly 1/4 inch. This knife is operated by means of a front flipper, and I gotta tell you, I've almost thrown it a couple of times. Funny enough, it actually will flip easier by using this area back here, which is actually not intended as a flipper tab. If you get your finger out of the way, it'll work. That is actually the tang of the blade that interacts with the lock bar. This knife has a lot of design issues. It is weird and it is almost pure novelty. This is one of the weirdest and most why knives that I have ever seen. But as I've tried to mention this before, 5 Cool Knives is not necessarily always about exposing people to things that make sense. In fact, a lot of my content is not necessarily. Sometimes it's just like, here this exists in the knife world. Did you know it's there? You can buy this knife. It's available right now. The link in the description will allow you to do that. This knife costs $300. Well, it's 300 euros, I think, but roughly $300. It's there. These are numbered. This is supremely weird and bizarre, and it does function. It does lock out securely. I will say that. It's definitely a secure lockup, but the geometry between the lock bar and the tang of the blade is, it's proper geometry. Ergonomically, it is a thing that you can hold. It has a pocket clip, and it technically has a blade. And if you push hard enough against the material that you are trying to cut, it will probably divide that material. Those are the nicest things that I can say. I have not yet reviewed this knife, and I'm going to be real. This is hardly a pocket knife. It's basically just a piece of steel attached to 2 pieces of titanium that folds and is dangerous not because it is sharp. It's just kind of weird. So here it is. I do think it's cool. That's really all that it has to be for this series. It's cool, but it's not in the same way that a lot of the other knives that I show are. So there you go. The SIF, or Sif Ultralight from Midgard's Messer. Let's move on here to something that is substantially less expensive and something that makes substantially more sense as a cutting tool, and that's the new CJRB Lago, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, button lock knife. This is a $50 budget button lock knife that operates very well. It's very, very easy to manipulate either with the flipper tab or with the little opening hole there. It has wonderful cutting geometry, and it also is sporting CJRB/Artisan Cutlery's proprietary AR RPM 9, which, as I have mentioned many times, is one of the only powder form steels that you will consistently see in the budget territory, or even under $100, right? $50 knife, great ergonomics, pretty good pocket clip. Love the peel ply, textured G10, nice and grippy without being too aggressive. Steel liners that have been milled out, I believe. Yeah, milled out for weight reduction. Just really nice. And honestly, a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. I thought this was going to be a little tiny thing. No, it's actually a full-size knife. Nice choke up position too. Really, just a very convenient and, it's just economic folding knife. Something that, I definitely recommend. I have not yet reviewed this one. In fact, nothing on this list today. You'll find full comprehensive reviews for on my channel, but they're all coming. Next up, let's talk about another weird one, and honestly, kind of a dangerous one. But I do think it's cool. This is the Concept Rio. Now, the last time I tried to actually front flip it, it shows that it's, like you'd think, yeah, you can front flip that. The last time I did that, I got myself there. So I want you guys to be aware of that. I'm actually going to top flip that, and I'm gonna do it again because I screwed up. Yeah. That's this awkward position that I just put my hand in is actually the safest means of deploying this thing. And this particular one is titanium. I call this plasma anno. I think there's actually a better name for it. And then we have the Damascus this is not Damasteel. Concept is known for doing their own Damascus, which I think is probably a 9CR, 10CR combination. And they also actually use Damasteel on some of their very expensive. I have a mini accipiter over here to the right off camera that is using Damasteel, and that is definitely different, definitely a lot more expensive. But this is their, Damascus. There's a less expensive version of this that's just G10 or micarta, and then, I don't know if it's like 154 CM or something like that. It's like $80. This guy right here, the titanium, and I think you have a choice between the Damascus that you're seeing here or S35EN, comes in at 140. This is a tiny, weird little knife. Sometimes, I really don't like carrying and seriously using knives of this size, especially considering that this one is a front flipper. I'm telling you, the safest way to do this is to top flip it, because the way that you normally position your hands to open a knife, right? When you do that, when you apply that movement to this thing, it's so small that even with the blade open, you can see there how I managed to do that. The thing is, it'll fit in the palm of your hand. So you are much more likely to attack yourself in your confusion with the tip of the blade. This is cool. It's kind of a little bit dangerous. You should kind of pay attention a little bit when you are deploying this thing, but it is neat. And I do appreciate that it is a liner lock. At least they did that. Can you imagine if this was an exposed frame lock? I sure hope the other I hope that there is no version of this that is an exposed frame lock. Why is that a problem? Because on top of all of the other things that all the other hoops you're jumping through when you're trying to, actually deploy this knife, it would be a nightmare to position your hands away from the lock so that you're not creating excess pressure and making it more difficult to deploy. If I were to create a top 10 list of knives you are most likely to throw across the room while trying to deploy them, this would be on that list, a very high position on that list. It is neat though, and I know that a lot of you guys are like me and you collect things that are not necessarily practical or even safe. I totally understand that. And I like talking about things that are kind of fun. So this much like the Sif Ultralight is not going to receive a shining review as a practical cutting tool, but it is neat. It is cool, and I find myself sitting here playing with it, daring myself to play with it, despite having actually nicked myself with the blade once. So there you go, the Concept Rio. Moving on here, a concept that is much more practical, much safer, and something that people who like functional tools will enjoy. This is another concept, the Concept Nazca front flipper. This is a nice looking knife, very like razor's edge. I mean, everything kind of looks like that. Really sleek and modern. We have a titanium frame lock. It's actually two-tone titanium, and then we have some blue accents here. This is a front flipper that is much easier to manipulate because the blade is longer and you have more handle to hang onto, even though there is an exposed titanium frame lock. S35EN steel. Really nice full-size profile. It looks like something that would be a little bit awkward to hang on to, like it would be, too angular or pointy in places, but truthfully, no. There's actually a choke-up lock-in up here that's all right. I'm a little bit crammed in there, but then again, I can get my finger pretty close up to the blade, which is a blessing and a curse, right? I mean, you can definitely transfer maximum power into cuts this way if you're cutting straight down, but also there's really nothing stopping you from running your finger up on that edge, so you need to be cognizant. The safest position is just to hold it with one finger past this ledge right here, so you're locking in, but you're still safely away from the blade. We have a pretty classic American Tanto here, which is definitely a strong blade shape. A flat running out something like 80%, maybe 75% the length of the blade. S35VN steel, if I didn't mention that. I think one of the best things about this, oh yeah, we have a full titanium backspacer and full milled clip on this guy. One of the best things about it is the price tag. This guy is coming in at $170, making it very, very competitive. Concept is only getting better with their manufacturing quality, and this is an example of something that really has no manufacturing flaws or defects. The centering is perfect, the detent is perfect, the lockout is fantastic, right? And with it being a front flipper deploying knife, like it only has one option. You can only deploy it using the front flipper. That front flipper really needs to work well, and it does. In fact, I think, yeah, I can even do it with the side of my index finger, which is amazing because this is a pretty long knife. I want to say that this thing comes in, where's my tape measure? Yeah, 8.5 inches, and it's got, I mean, if you want to go all the way down to here, you're looking at 3.85 inches of blade, at least 3.75, and that's with the cutting edge as well. So definitely not a small knife. Pretty cool. One of the more interesting things that's come out from Concept here recently. And finally, we have one knife that's manufactured in the United States. I'm going to let you guys know right now, this is a ridiculously expensive knife. But what is even more offensive is how difficult it actually is to acquire. But it is still a cool knife, and it is still technically something you can get your hands on if you are, really, really dedicated. That's going to be the new Brown Knives Mini FSD. Why would you even show us that? Sorry, it's cool. I still want people to know that it exists, right? I have a Brown FSD, and I've got the full-size one. It was not easy to acquire. Even being able to acquire, that's one thing, but coming up with the $800 that you'll need to acquire said knife is a problem in and of itself. However, this is one of the most for people who are familiar with this territory, yes, this is a territory, and yes, there are people who are familiar with it. If you're new, that's going to come as a shock. Welcome to the knife world. It gets way worse. Oh, don't cry about $800. It gets way worse. There's things out there that'll make you just tears, like just rivers of tears and frustration, right? $800 is a lot. But believe me, if you're new, it gets way more expensive than that. For people who are familiar with the $800 territory, this is very, very impressive. The milling on the titanium is beautiful. And again, this is USA, like true USA, meaning small batch, all in-house USA production. This is much like the full-size FSD, it is a button-operated liner lock, so not a traditional plunge lock like what you see on a button lock knife. The other nice thing is that this can be manipulated, much like its bigger brother, with the fuller. I gotta say, the little one is actually more friendly to the hand. I like the big one. I feel like I'm a little more likely to pinch myself in this area right here, which I talked about with the big one. If you accidentally get your finger right there, that it'll pinch you. I feel like with the little one, it's more, and I say little, but guys, this isn't a little knife. It's actually almost 8 inches, I believe. Yeah, 7.75 with almost a 3.5 inch blade. So still pretty darn close to full size, especially considering this choke up area is really generous. So you really feel like you've got plenty of room to move around if you want to come all the way up there. But this is full USA manufacturing, and the quality is off the charts. In fact, this thing beats out most other USA knives in this territory, right, that are actually mid-tech or semi-custom level quality. I think, save for the Koenig Arius, there's not really much else that's competing exactly with this when it comes to overall execution of the materials used. I really like the way that he's doing this. Is slightly different. Always reminds me of the Captain Planet intro. I also like where he's putting his logo and the milling in that area. The button is slightly different here. You'll notice the steel on this guy. It says number 45, 154. You can choose between, well, I say choose. If you have an opportunity to buy one, they will either come in CPM 20CV or CPM 154. I have mine's in 20CV, but truthfully, if I was going to use it, I'd prefer CPM 154. And then you have a full satin finish or a tumbled satin finish option. I think this is, yeah, it's like mine. It's like the tumbled. You can see if you turn it this way. Look at those. Ah, man. It's just gorgeous, the grind lines on those. There's a subtle tumbling there. This thing is also aggressively sharp. Holy moly. This thing is just stupid. It's screaming sharp, man. Operates incredibly easily. Man, it's such a joy to operate this thing as a right-handed person with the button on the other side. It has one issue, and that's if you are choking up and squeezing very hard, that button... I can't even get it to go now. It can disengage if you're pushed. I had to push the pad of my finger right there. I had to actually intentionally adjust my hand to push that into the button. Now, normally, just squeezing it doesn't feel like it's going to disengage, right? And the lockup is absolutely solid. Yeah, no issues whatsoever. So just be aware of that. Otherwise, fit and finish is essentially perfect. If you can get your hands on this, and if you can, budget for this knife, this is an absolutely collection-worthy object for people who are, super knife enthusiasts. So there was something for everybody today. Once again, Brown Mini FSD, not a mini knife at all. We have the Concept Nazca. We have the tiny and angry and unsafe Concept Rio. We have the wonderful CJRB Lago, and the very confusing and very expensive Midgard's Messer Sif Ultralight, which I'll hand it to them. This is the lightest blade that I have ever seen, coming in at nearly 1/4 of an inch. And believe it or not, I've actually seen quite a few pocket knives with a 1/4 inch blade stock. All right, this was probably the weirdest episode of 5 Cool Knives I've ever done. I hope you enjoyed. Like I said, these knives will be linked down in the description so that you can check them out if you want to. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.